are making a new record, and it is a record that is inspired by stories and fact from mills and millworking in the north of England, mainly in the 1800s, particularly the late 1800s.
And we were all inspired by folk stories in general, and also the narratives of good songwriting, and the fact that narrative is important to good songwriting. But when you look at folk, both traditional and modern folk, often they have like a reinvented, reworked kind of mythological view of the past. So we wanted to do something that was kind of a little bit more rooted in fact and the realities of people's lives.
When we sat down to talk about what this record was going to be, we got chatting about other things, and we talked about the fact that how all three of us don't live where we're from. We all moved away for university, for jobs, for women, for whatever. And we talked about the fact that there's a lot of positives to that, but there's also a lot of negatives to that as well. And so we then got talking about how not every generation has been able to do that. And many, many years ago, when mill workers would build places, they would have to put housing and schools around for the people that worked there. And so you would kind of end up doing your father's job, and he would have done your grandfather's job, and he would have done your great-grandfather's job. So you'd have been kind of stuck in this community. And that's what made us think about running with that idea. We were all quite inspired by that, because it wasn't just about the history, it was about us, it was about our lives.
But then we've been also looking at influences from recording some of the sounds of the periods, like water wheels and spinning equipment.
Without this, you are nothing. The clock punch is looming over me. It feels like it will always be.
Hello, it is the 1st of March 2010. It is, what time are we on? It's about 6:30.
Isn't it rock o'clock?
It's rock o'clock. And we are about to start recording the first sounds for our new album. And tonight we're recording the first single, which is called The Wheel. Right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Two, three, 2, 2, 3.
very difficult for us to define what the sound is, because I don't think we really know. There's elements, because of the instruments that we're using and the way we've constructed some of the songs, that are of kind of folk. I think you wouldn't be too far from the truth if you sort of said it kind of fell into the kind of new folk category, and I think we have perhaps similarities with some of the bands that would probably call themselves new folk and would be happy to do that. We're using a certain amount of kind of electronica, and not in a kind of really obvious and kind of aggressive way, in a way that dominates the music, but the elements are there, and there are some of the things that we're doing in terms of arranging the music that are very unconventional, and mean that we're sort of actually, and during this process, we move further and further away from being able to define things as songs in their own right, and we're sort of working more on themes and recurring patterns that come back, and there are voices in the music, I would say, as opposed to things that are traditional song forms.
In terms of the sounds on the record, in the main, it's built around a live performance of me playing the piano, Ivan playing the cajon and percussion, and Spence either playing the guitar or the bass. But as well as that, there are all kinds of soundscapes and effects that Ivan has brought. When we went to Style Mill to visit, we recorded a lot of the machinery, and using a computer system, Ivan is able to turn that machinery into rhythms that we use. In particular, there's a song called Little Boy Lost, which features lots of those rhythms, but all the way through, there's more of a soundscape. There's quite a lot of instruments in it that aren't that traditional, I suppose.
The great thing about Ivan is he brings in sounds and textures which neither Rick or I really have done in our own music in the past, and so it's nice to have someone who kind of understands the kind of the technical side of making grooves and stuff on the laptop, which has been a huge bonus on this record, with all the mill sounds and those samples.
As well as that, to get that kind of old-fashioned kind of feel, I arranged some classical instruments. There is some cello, some violin, some viola. There's also a brass section on there with cornet, and there's horn and trumpet and other things. There's also some flute on there as well. So there's this real kind of juxtaposition between very traditional music, very sort of avant-garde new wave music, and then us in between, kind of making sure that there's still melody going on in amongst this cacophony.
One thing with the songwriting, one change that from Rick's work and the stuff I've done, is that we've kind of really focused on the storytelling based around the characters that we've kind of envisaged from this mill town, which is something that neither of us have really done before, but I found it kind of easier to write some of the songs when you kind of think about the lives of these people and how they kind of, you know, their families and their work lives, and we approached it. It's not a kind of story from start to end, but there's kind of little kind of tales within there that kind of tell the tale of the town on the whole.
Ivan and I have made music together a few times. The first time I think I played in a band with Ivan, I was filling in for a keyboard player from the band he was then in called Rent, and then my drummer dropped out, so he started drumming on my solo stuff. So that's kind of the first time, in fact, that me and Ivan and Spence all worked together. Since then, he carried on playing on my solo stuff, and on the last record, Someone Else's Home, he played drums and percussion on that, and really that's when the kind of three of us really started being a three-piece, I guess, rather than those guys just kind of backing me. The same thing happened with the March Greens record that Spence made as well.
We have very different writing styles, really, but that's the good thing with this album, is how the songwriting styles are kind of contrasted, but they do sit well on the record next to each other.
Little boy lost, it all looks the same. Trying to take a turn, trying to make a change. Like a little boy lost, I know lost for good. The dream that made me live was finally spilled my blood. breath starts to